All right, thank you very much. Here are golf analysts DeLaet and Bob Weeks, supposed to be here covering the Canadian Open. What is it about this tournament where massive news seems to break? It was last year that Liv's first event was up against the Canadian Open, and now the most shocking seismic day in the history of men's golf. How do they pull this 180 from 2 years of a bitter rivalry, and we will never join forces, to suddenly partnering with the Saudis?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for what both sides had. They both had some assets. Obviously, Live Golf was not returning a lot of revenue for the PIF, the Saudi fund that was backing it, and the PGA Tour, I don't think, could keep going financially at the rate it was going, paying out these big purses. And so I think they met together and said, hey, we can probably make sweet music together here. Let's just join forces rather than knocking each other's head against each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad look for Jay Monahan. There's no question. I spoke with a bunch of players. We heard what Adam just said there, and there's basically two different things. Guys are either extremely upset and they feel betrayed by the PGA Tour and Jay Monahan, or they're just kind of like, my voice is never heard anyways. I'm just going to kind of keep doing my thing, and whatever happens, happens.
Some of the stuff that went on in what was a very heated meeting, the players and Jay Monahan here at Oakdale. At one point, one player suggested a change in PGA Tour leadership, and there was a standing ovation for that. Is there a possibility that they're outraged enough that they could oust Jay Monahan?
It's definitely a possibility. There is a process by which the players can remove the leadership, and it's a long, involved process, but it is possible to happen. The tension in that meeting today, as it was described to us by a couple of different players, really lets you know that Jay Monahan is in the hot seat right now. He's described this framework that he has. He needs to get a little deeper. He needs to give these guys more information, I think, if he wants to save his job.
Well, the hypocrisy is ludicrous, and Jay Monahan admitted that he knows he's going to be called that when he basically recruited 9/11 families to be on the PGA Tour side last year, and those families releasing a statement saying they feel betrayed. I don't know, how do you emerge from that?
Yeah, it's a tough look for Jay, like I said, and I think, like as a player myself, a former player, I would have a tough time trusting the brass on the PGA Tour after he's basically done a complete 180 flip. And like, how do you trust anything moving forward? And is he the right guy for the job now?
Okay, but he clearly intends to win them over with money, right? This is a deal purely about money, and if suddenly purses are tripled or whatever it is, can money win these guys over?
Well, I think that's how we kind of ended up here in the first place. I mean, we're all kind of guessing what exactly happened, but was it sustainable to keep pumping money into all these new purses, these new designated events over and over? And how long was that going to last until they dried up and they had to go searching for money elsewhere?
So, as you were hinting at, essentially you had the Saudis who started this Live Tour and then realized it wasn't working, nobody was watching it. And you had the PGA Tour who had issues. And so two places had financial problems, and their only solution was each other.
As Jay Monahan said, I took a competitor off the board. That's the way he described what happened, and taking Live off the board and making it part of the PGA Tour. A PGA Tour of which, and this new entity, by the way, which Jay Monahan is listed as the new CEO, not so much for the Live people. Along with the players, all the people who worked at Live did not find out that this was happening until moments before that press release went out, including, of course, Greg Norman.
And the way Jay Monahan spoke in his news conference is that he was now running Live, that a decision on Live would be based on their thorough evaluation of where to go forward. Now, as far as, a guy like Rory McIlroys, who not only turned down $175 million to go to the Live Tour, but also sort of became the spokesperson for the honor and loyalty of staying with the PGA Tour, how must that make him feel? And how do you please somebody like him?
Yeah, you talk about betrayal. That has to feel like the ultimate betrayal. I mean, he was carrying the torch for the PGA Tour for the last year and a half, and you could see it affected his golf game. He was kind of just out of energy. He took a week off for mental health reasons, and now here we are, and he'll be like, Jay, what happened? What changed? Now we're here, and we're going back the other way.
Well, he did talk about, Monahan was asked, what is the process for Live Tour players coming back to the PGA Tour, and is it possible that PGA Tour players like Rory, who turned down the Live Tour, could they be made whole? And he certainly said, look, we're not into the details yet, but equalization over time was a possibility. Could you have Live players being asked to give back $10 million to return, and that money goes to guys who didn't go?
I'm sure it won't happen as an exchange of money in the locker room, but you imagine there's a fund that they'll pay into and a fund that the other players may take out of. That's a long way off right now, though, but if I was Rory or Tiger, I would be supremely disappointed.
And also to remind everyone, this is way more than just about golf. The Secretary of State for the U.S. in Saudi Arabia announcing business ties with Saudi Arabia on this day reports that the Saudis intend to spend $20 billion to bring more soccer players to their league. They have clearly identified the fact that sports is their way to get a global influence. PGA Tour has a global stage, and they're willing to spend as much money as possible to get it.